What it do, you two? Welcome back to another episode of Scotty Says. I am your host, Scotty, and you already know what time it is. By now, you saw the game, or you've seen the highlights. And so, I have entitled this episode, Motown Melee, Exiled King. Let's get right into this. Shall we? We shall. Well, by now you know LeBron James was ejected in the third quarter of last night's Lakers-Detroit Pistons game in Detroit for throwing a wicked reverse punch that bloodied the face of Detroit big man Isaiah Stewart. And Isaiah Stewart, once that blood started pouring down his face, lost his mind and went ballistic and went through a number of people in an attempt to get at the king. But, of course, that was not going to happen. So let's get right into what happened. Now, it was a roller coaster ride. And in the beginning, it felt like I was watching this same old sad Laker movie. Once again, the Lakers were struggling with a team that let's call lower tier opponent. And it felt like it was Groundhog's Day all over again for the LA Lakers. And then on what seemed to be an inconsequential made free throw in the third quarter, Isaiah Stewart and LeBron James are jostling, and LeBron swipes back at Stewart and connects. It was actually a hell of a punch because it looked like the punch connected. It was like a reverse MMA punch, and it looked like a swinging reverse, and it looked like it connected. It got Stewart's mouth, nose, and above the eye. Opened up a cut above the eye. Opened up blood pouring from his mouth. I don't know how his nose fared, but I'm sure that was an unpleasant feeling exchange for Mr. Stewart. And once the blood started streaming, my man went ballistic. Now, they say Stewart is a amateur fighter or a former boxer of some sort. And maybe that's why he doesn't fight still, because if you bleed like that in the ring, they'd stop every fight. Although Bron's a big guy and there were no gloves, so you got to give him that. But I felt like the Lakers were stumbling through the same script all over again in Detroit. Now, the Lakers had lost 6 of the last 9 games. And it looked like they were on their way for 7 of 10. And then the free throw. The swinging reverse phantom punch that connected in 3 different places, opening up wounds, opening up gashes. And I saw resolve. I saw fight back from the Lakers. And first, let me say, it's a good thing that Isaiah Stewart's teammates and other players, Laker players, and the coaching staff and these other people were all there, because the security personnel at on the court in Detroit looked woefully inept. They basically did an Olay and got out of the way. And, in fairness, these are giant people. So, you see a near 7-foot guy running after a 6'9", 6'10" guy with force and determination. And you got an average sized couple security guards going, hey, okay, well, excuse me then. Let him go. But I saw, after all of the hoopla, I saw resolve from the Lakers, something I hadn't seen this year. I saw resolve from Anthony Davis. I saw Russell Westbrook respond with passion, yes, as always, but with composure as well. I saw leadership from Russ and AD after LeBron was ejected. And by now, as you've probably heard, that ejection has indeed turned into a suspension. LeBron has been suspended 1 game. He'll miss the New York Knicks game. The Knicks. And Stewart has been suspended 2 games. Now, LeBron was suspended 1 game for recklessly throwing that crouching tiger reverse swinging blow. And Stewart was suspended 2 games for what the league said was escalation. I mean, he was an out of control individual. So, escalating the event and, aggressively going after the king. Interesting aside, both the suspensions will be served by the end of this week. And on Sunday, this weekend, Detroit visits the Lakers at Staples, the Palace, in a rematch. And both Stewart and LeBron should be eligible to play. That should be interesting television. We'll be monitoring the goings-on. You can believe that. Carmelo also provided that veteran leadership. Not just his play on the court, which was, and when Melo is hitting, those shots are so pure, it's just twine. Wish. String music. And he was tickling the twines in Detroit. But also, he provided that leadership in terms of gathering the troops and giving them words of inspiration. And the reports are that it was Carmelo who said, we have to make a stand. We have to win this game. We have to show who we really are, and we have to win it for Bron, and we have to do it together. We have to be who we are supposed to be right now. And they showed it. So as I've said, the Melo signing was brilliant. And I hope they will extend him at least another year. And I'll give credit where I don't usually offer it, and that's to Frankie V. Even Vogel showed composure. He was collected. He shortened his rotations and helped navigate through all of that turmoil and tumult, the storm, in the aftermath of the LeBron and Stewart ejections. just as an aside, what I saw reminded me of how the league used to be. Right? Back in the wild days in the NBA. And as I mentioned in another video, I've been watching NBA basketball a long time. And of course, maybe the most infamous event on court violence was the Kermit Washington Rudy T incident. But there have been many, many others. And what came to my mind watching the King with that crouching tiger move was J.R. Dirty Red Reed and A.C. Green. You guys remember that? Now, this was a long time ago. And at this point, A.C. Green was no longer playing for the Lakers. I think it was 96 or so. And A.C. Green was playing for Phoenix, I believe. And J.R. Dirty Red Reed was playing for the Tricks. New York Knicks. I wonder why I keep saying that. And J.R. Dirty Red Reed didn't like A.C. Green. And A.C. Green had this Iron Man streak, where he had played in, 700 plus consecutive games. And J.R. Dirty Red Reed made a decision, reportedly had even told people ahead of time that he was gonna elbow A.C. Green in the head and, bust his chops. And sure enough, J.R. Dirty Red Reed took his elbow during the game. He lined him up and right in the chopper. Knocked out 2 of A.C. Green's teeth in the middle of the game. And they stopped the game for a minute, and A.C. looked around on the court, and he saw one tooth, picked that one up, and looked a little longer, and there was the other one. And he went and picked up that second tooth and walked over to the bench. And the game continued. And J.R. Dirty Red Reed didn't even get ejected. 1996 knocked that man's teethies out. Now, subsequently, J.R. Dirty Red Reed was suspended a couple of games, I believe, and fined, I think it was $10,000. And they fitted A.C. Green with some kind of mouthpiece protective deal so he could play a minute or two in the next game so he could keep his streak alive. But to see a man looking on the floor for his teeth, that was disturbing. But I digress. My take on it is that Stewart was doing a little bit extra. A little too much extra, to be honest with you, pushing and jostling the King over a meaningless made free throw in a November game. And you got to keep in mind, see, the King has been sidelined with a lot of injuries. And, going back, he had this injury when Solomon Hill ran into his leg. And that set him down with that high ankle situation. And he's had other players kind of, cause him to get sidelined. And so I'm sure, I can't speak for LeBron James. I don't know what was in his mind, but I'm speculating that when Isaiah Stewart was doing all that pushing and jostling at the free throw line on a made free throw, if you watch the replay, and I've watched it several times, if you slow it down. It looks like Isaiah Stewart is leveraging his weight against LeBron James so much that LeBron is almost about to tip over. He's kind of on one leg and he's about to lose his balance. And it looks to me like he swipes back to say, stop pushing me, you're going to knock me down, and I don't want to fall over, and I've been injured. All this is going through his mind, right? And I've been hurt, and I just got back, and cut it out. It's a meaningless free throw. Stop it. And when he swiped back with that force, he connected with that man. I see Isaiah Stewart's face got in the way is what happened. I don't believe LeBron wanted to connect with his face. He wasn't doing a JR Dirty Red Reed, trying to take out his frustrations on the man's face. I don't believe that. But he was letting him know, cut it out. And he swiped with force. And when you do that, you have to be responsible for the outcome. And it turns out in this case, the outcome was that reverse flying tiger. Crouching dragon. Opened him up. He was leaking. And then once, he saw all that, one thing fed on the next, and everything went ballistic. And as the old folks say, all hell broke loose. So LeBron has to take responsibility for throwing the dragon. And I think one game is fair. And Stewart has to take responsibility for ginning this up and making this an extremely over-the-top, overwrought reaction. I see both sides because, on the other hand, saying sorry, my bad doesn't help a lot when your head is opened up. Hey, my bad, dog. Yeah, but my head is open, dog. As for the Lakers, it might be that maybe they found some sort of camaraderie or some sort of communal sense of purpose, or they tapped into something. Because the Lakers went down 17 in the third quarter after LeBron's ejection. And at the start of the fourth quarter, they were down 15. And I thought, this is a replay, a carbon copy of all these other bad Laker losses. Done. And then what do you know? But in that fourth quarter, Russell Westbrook put up 15, 5, and 5 in the fourth quarter. He's the first player in 25 years to do that. 15 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, all in the fourth quarter. Money time. Russ ended up the game just 1 rebound shy of a triple-double, 26, 9, and 10. AD, who has rightly been scrutinized and criticized, especially after Giannis made him look small. AD had 30 and 10, and he played big down the stretch in the fourth quarter. Blocking shots. You saw the double left-hand blocks in the fourth quarter. Huge in the fourth. That's what we need to see from AD. Resolve. And did you see him when Stewart was charging at LeBron? AD was like, hey, I'm not going to let you get to him now. And Russ was like, put him up. And, Melo contributed, pitched in 18 big points, 2 blocks as well. And it was Melo, as I say, who called the team to rally. Lakers moved to 9-9 now. They're 500 after 18 games. But hopefully, more importantly, hopefully they found something that they can tap into moving forward, their stride. Only time will tell, and we will be here to monitor the goings on, as you know. But was the spark found that lit the fire to ignite and propel the Lakers to greater heights? I saw the grit I've been looking for that I hadn't seen. I saw the resolve. I saw the determination. I saw will. And it was good to see, even if it was under less than ideal circumstances, because you hate to see anybody hurt. Now, finally, the heat is growing under Frankie V, okay? The fire under his seat has been ratcheted up. I just saw where Vegas has Frankie V's odds at 3-1 as being the next NBA coach to be fired. And they just fired Luke Walton in Sacramento. And Vegas has Frankie V as 3-1 odds to be the next coach fired. So, you know, they didn't build all those casinos in Vegas just on guesses and hopes. They have inside information. They have intel, let's call it. And as you know, I've been more than critical of Vogel. So, even though I just gave him credit for what I saw in Detroit. So let's see now what happens as we go to New York, the Big Apple, MSG, and we are going to take on the Tricks tomorrow. I wonder why I keep saying that. Lakers, Knicks coming up. The King is exiled for a game. The heat is growing under Vogel's seat now. So that win in Detroit shows the Lakers still can reach their very lofty goals. But their margin for error is very thin, very narrow. So we'll keep monitoring the goings on at Staples, a.k.a. the Palace. Please, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, help me grow the channel, and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Was that Crouching Dragon? Was that intentional? Incidental? As Vogel said? What do you think about Vogel? Until next time, my folks, Scotty says, one love.